Hi, and welcome to another edition of Forbes 2 on 2. I'm Aaron Perlett from Elasticity.
This is Paul from Social Media Explore, and we are talking about a couple of interesting topics today. Obviously, the 60 Minutes expose on Lance Armstrong and doping in bicycling last weekend is big news around the world, but also around the marketing world. And the first question we want to tee off today, Aaron, is do you think that sponsors should disassociate from Lance Armstrong in light of the allegations?
Well, I think it's actually pretty fascinating because despite the fact that I really don't get cycling, in particular those very uncomfortable-looking biking shorts that I think are utterly unnecessary, Lance is arguably the most marketable superstar of the last decade, and he's got brands like Nike and Radio Shack and Michelob Ultra that pay him a tremendous amount of money to essentially pimp their brands. And, I think right now nobody really knows what's going on. You've got a lot of relatively credible accusers that are coming out and say that he doped. But I still think, we really need to wait. If I were a brand and I had invested a lot of time and money in Lance Armstrong, I still think you needed to wait and take a very cautious approach to see how things pan out.
Well, I would agree with you. I liken the Lance Armstrong thing, and maybe this is being a little too harsh, but he has a very different public image. But I liken it to the Barry Bonds situation. Yes, everyone was doing it, or it seems that everyone in the cycling world was doing it, but that doesn't make it right, and that doesn't make him an admirable figure in the public's eyes because, yes, he was one of the most remarkable athletes over the last 10 years, but he did it by cheating, if the allegations are true. And it seems, like you say, there's a lot of credible people coming forward saying the allegations are true. So I think he's just like Barry Bonds. I think brands have got to walk away from him until it can be absolutely proven that he didn't do it, and I don't think it can.
Yeah, of course, the only difference between he and Barry Bonds is that Barry Bonds has an enormous melon on top of his shoulders. I mean, that guy's head is huge. So
you're absolutely right.
So, our picture isn't as clear as it normally is, and you're doing it remotely from Blog World today. Tell us a little bit about Blog World, and then let's talk about a pretty interesting study that's been released there from Armstrong and Edison Research.
Sure. Blog World and New Media Expo is probably like the biggest social media blogging conference in the world. It used to be in Las Vegas, and this year, for the first time, they're dividing it into two conferences, one in New York here, obviously at the end of May, the other one in Los Angeles in the beginning of November. And it's really where individuals and companies can come together and learn about blogging, social media marketing, so on and so forth. It's a really huge conference and a really successful event. And it's been fun being a part of it, not only as a speaker, but I'm obviously an exhibitor for one of my businesses here. So it's a lot of fun.
A lot of social media douchebags like yourself?
That would be, yes. It is a douchebag collection agency. This is exactly what it is.
So some pretty interesting research that's come out there at Blog World from Armstrong and Edison Research. Tell us a little bit about it and what you think is pertinent out of the facts that have come out.
Well, the research that Tom Webster from Edison actually presented here yesterday is pretty interesting. The one thing that popped out to me was the location-based services like Facebook Places, Foursquare, GoElastic. They get a lot of attention in the marketing world, but only 4% of Americans age 12 and up have ever used them. And so a lot of people might shrug that off and say, well, that means they're irrelevant, but I see that also as a great deal of upside potential because remember, we're really only on the front end of the smartphone revolution. However, of those 4%, this was concerning to me, it's like, I think it's 82% of the people of that 4%, they only check in sometime. One friend of mine seemed to say that checking into a location is an unnatural act, and I think that might be true. So it's interesting to watch the location-based services stuff.
Yeah, a couple of statistics that I found pretty interesting, and also just to add on to what you were saying is that it's pretty interesting the fact that if you look at Foursquare versus Facebook Places absolutely dominates the penetration of Foursquare just because you've got so many people that are on the platform already. And you still find a pretty significant amount of people that are using it, but really just in really large metropolitan areas. But still, that 4% is pretty damning. The other thing that I found pretty fascinating was that while 84% of Americans have mobile phones, only 31% using smartphones. So, people are always asking me what's next, and I keep telling people it's still mobile because with only 31% of the U.S. using smartphones, there's still a tremendous distance to go until we have full smartphone penetration, and therefore it give marketers more access to get the people through those devices. I also think it's pretty fascinating that about 57% of people that are using social networks are not following brands. So, for the brands that look at Facebook as some kind of couponing machine and direct access or easy direct access to a consumer, I think you really have to think twice about it and consider how many people are really following and engaged with me.
Well, and you also have to remember, too, Aaron, that 43% of people following brands on social networks is a tremendous higher percentage than the 0.1% click-through rate that brands are experiencing now with online advertising. So I think it's a wash. I think brands should still be focusing on connecting with people online. That's going to do it for this edition of 2 on 2. I'm Jason Falls with Social Media Explorer.
And I'm Aaron Perla from Elasticity. Take it light, baby.